Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, welcome to a new video. I know it's been a really long time and I got a cute comment on the most recent video saying that you missed me, at least one person has missed me out there. And I have really wanted to connect with you. It's just that these last few months I haven't had so much inspiration or much to talk about, but that's changed. And basically it's all changed because I just came back from Spain. I had maybe the 3 most beautiful days of my life, and it really has got me thinking about my future, and I've kind of felt stuck over the last several months, almost paralyzed basically with indecision about what my next steps are, because a lot of things are coming to a culmination over the next few months, like leading into the end of the year, and I've had to start thinking about, well, what comes next. So first of all, my 2-year residency is going to expire here in Portugal at the end of this year, like sometime in December. And at the same time, the same month, my lease is coming up on this apartment now. I'll have been in this apartment for 3 years at the time that the lease is up. Obviously, I have been in the apartment longer than my residency because of how long the residency process took. And, up until this past weekend when I was in Spain, I was pretty sure that, I was just going to continue with my residency, renew that, and find a new apartment here in Lisbon or in its surrounding area, maybe towards Estoril, Cascais, somewhere around there towards the coast. And, it was sort of feeling like fated, like, okay, that's just what's next to do because I don't really have any other specific idea. And the thing is, I'm not unhappy here in Portugal, but I don't think I'm as happy as I could be. Now, let me give some background on this and then let's get into, let's dive into the details, Portugal specific. So, as most of you know, if you've been following this channel for a long time, I was living for 4 years in Bali before I came to Europe. Now, I had a great life in Bali, but I was quite isolated socially. I came to Europe specifically because I felt that, I would be able to find more of a community here, more friends, better opportunities for dating, etc. And I have found all of that. Now, my first choice when I was planning to leave Bali was Spain. And I had come to Barcelona to spend the summer, and I consulted with the lawyer about what the process would be like to move there. And at the time, Spain didn't have a digital nomad visa, and as it was explained to me, the process for me applying for a visa was going to be kind of complicated. I would have had to basically apply for more or less like a retirement type of visa, or like a self-sustaining income kind of visa. And then I don't know how Portugal exactly came on my radar, but it did. And the visa process for Portugal was easier, more straightforward. And I just been hearing so much about Portugal, so basically I decided, let me come here, see how I like it, and I liked it enough that I decided to move forward with this process kind of as my entry into Europe, because really the goal, I think, was to be in Europe, even though, as I said, Spain was truly my first choice for a bunch of reasons. That I'd already spent time there, I already spoke Spanish because I had lived for 2 years in Mexico, and I just felt pretty comfortable and happy generally, every time I was in Spain. But so I ended up here in Portugal, and what can I say, I've grown so much over the last 2 years as a person, the last almost 3 years at this point as a person, and I don't regret my decision to come here. This is the decision. My dog Pedro is also here as a new addition to my life thanks to Portugal, but anyway, he's gonna maybe be jumping in and out of this video. Let me stay on track. So, I think that it's not worth it to regret having moved here. But, shortly after I did come here, Spain also came out with their digital nomad visa, which streamlined a lot the process. And frankly, it seems like the bureaucracy works much better in Spain than in Portugal, because Spain, they have, I think, 21 days to give you an answer to your request for a visa, whereas here in Portugal it can last a year. And already to think about the renewal process for Portugal, even though I think that more recently they've streamlined it and they've brought back the online request for renewal, it's just always stressful doing anything with the bureaucracy here. So basically, what what am I feeling about Portugal? Well, life here has become so expensive. And I know that some commenters will be like, well, you're partly to blame for that. And I don't really feel like I am, because I don't have enough money to buy a house here like many other retirees or like rich expats do. I'm stuck also in this renting hell, and my landlord, who is a Portuguese lady, is quite greedy and has raised my rent consistently, and I'm sure that she would raise it when it comes time for my renewal again, which is why she only extended my contract 1 year. And basically, nowadays here in Lisbon, like I think it's pretty hard to find a quality place for under 2,000 euros a month, and at that price point you're not even getting anything that is that nice in terms of the decor or the architecture or whatever. Like, it's just, there's always some kind of trade-off. Either you're in like a neighborhood that's not as nice, or you don't have a view, or just like something. And it's kind of the problem of Lisbon, is that it's quite a small city, so there's just not that much housing inventory as compared to maybe other cities that have a much larger either population or whatever. So it's really challenging, and I've been looking, as I said, everywhere from like Lisbon to Cascais along that coast, and I just have very, very rarely come across anything that I feel like really excited by or inspired to live in. And I just think that the people here, the landlords in Lisbon and the areas, have just become so greedy. Obviously the Airbnb thing is a problem. So I don't really feel like, me personally, I am much to blame for the situation, but more like a victim. And I feel that, Lisbon has just gotten so expensive that it's not really worth the prices. Like, especially when I think about, my life, for example, in Bali, which it's comparing apples to oranges, but to live in a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom villa with a private pool and a garden, I was spending less than half of what I'm spending to live in a 2-bedroom apartment here in Lisbon. And with the knowledge that my rent, even if I stayed in this apartment, would only increase next year, and again, to spend like 2,000 euros a month being on a rent spiral, it doesn't make sense for me financially. And I also don't feel like, for me, who can live anywhere because of my business, like, why should I stay in a place that is expensive and also not really giving me what I don't know, it's not filling my soul. And okay, so this is again what has changed for me over this last weekend, it kind of reconfirmed for me when I was in Spain, because every time I'm in Spain, and now I've visited several different places, like this trip I started off in Salamanca. I actually drove from Lisbon, and then from Salamanca I went up to Asturias to stay with friends in the countryside. And I've stayed in Madrid, I've stayed in Barcelona, I visited Ibiza. Like, every time I'm in Spain, there's just something about the culture that speaks to my soul. I love the Spanish language, I love the music, I love the people, the warmth, the energy there is so different from here in Portugal. And that brings me, I guess, to another point, which is like comparing the culture, I guess, of Spain to Portugal. Now, you would think that these are two Iberian countries, geographically, like, in such proximity, they should share a pretty similar culture, but that's just not the case. And for me, when it comes to dating, I've always had really positive experiences with Spanish men. Like, I don't think I've ever had a disappointing experience with a Spanish guy, whether that be sexually or whatever. Like, it just always clicks. And I've tried so hard with Portuguese guys, because I find them generally like really attractive, but they just have a completely different personality. And where the Spanish tend to be really warm and, I don't know, open and fun, like the Portuguese can be quite closed, reserved, and distant. And even though I think the younger generation is not as bad as maybe like older generations, it is still a very marked difference for me. Like, again, I find that Spain's culture is just more exuberant, and Portuguese culture is much more like withdrawn, You know, you can see it in the difference of like the music. For example, the national, you know, music, the traditional music of Portugal is fado, which is like really depressing and like melancholic, whereas, you know, think about all the like fun, whether it be a reggaeton or whatever, like the music from Spain, or even, you know, the traditional music from Spain, it's flamenco, whatever. There's just so much more vibrancy in that, and it resonates with me much more because, I don't know, like I find that life is to be enjoyed, and I like the notion of celebrating life, and I love how in Spain, you know, everybody is sitting out on a terrace, like having a drink in that late afternoon, and you know, the Spanish ladies are so effortlessly elegant, and it's just like, I don't know, there's so much natural beauty in Spain, and I just love it so much. So it's basically getting back to where I really wanted to be in the first place. I wanted to be in Spain, and I came here to Portugal mostly just because of the visa, and again felt like when I came here, okay, I like Lisbon, I could live here. And you know, these 2 years, they haven't been bad at all. Like, it is a nice lifestyle that I've had here. It's great to be in Lisbon and to be able to go to the beach as much as I want, since I have a motorbike, and it's just a, you know, 30-minute drive to like a beautiful beach across the bridge in Caparica, or I don't know, like, you know, going to the Monsanto Park, which is 10 minutes away, or whatever. Like, I've had a good life here. It's just that I think that the biggest point for me is that with how expensive Lisbon has become, it doesn't feel worth it to continue to pay those prices when it's not a place that really resonates with me, that I see myself living long term. Because my original idea anyway, which brings me now to my third point, was that I would stay here long enough to get permanent residency or citizenship and then move elsewhere. Because when I came here, it's almost like false advertising in a sense. When I came here, it was 5 years until you could apply for nationality and a passport. And now there is a law that basically is going to be passed very shortly that changes that from 5 to 10 years for non-Portuguese speaking countries. So obviously in my case, I'm an American from the United States. So that would push back the clock for me another 8 years, because I've only been a resident here for 2 years. And I just don't want to be here for another 8 years, which will put me in my mid-40s basically. Like, this is just not where I see myself sticking it out for another 8 years. If it was a matter of 3 years, yeah, I think I could do that and it would be worthwhile. But when it's not where ultimately I want to be, like, I just don't see the point of that. So even though, for example, Spain, it's also, in my case, 10 years to become a citizen, like, I don't mind starting the clock at 0 because I want to be in Spain anyway. So even if my status there is just as a temporary resident until I can get permanent residency or whatever, I really don't mind waiting on that track because it's where I want to be. So I guess the last point, and I'm sure some people will make this, especially if you've been following along on my journey, because I've lived in so many places. You know, as an American, I lived in New York and then Los Angeles, and I moved to Mexico. And within Mexico, I lived in Tulum, then San Miguel de Allende, then I moved to Thailand and Chiang Mai, then I moved to Bali, then I moved here. So, you know, I have had so much freedom because of my business over the last more than 10 years, really. I've always been kind of looking for where is the right place for me, and I think that that has continued to evolve over time. And of course, I've realized throughout all of this that it's not the place that is going to make you happy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you cannot base all of your like feeling that, okay, if I move to a new place, that's going to make me 100% happy. No, I know that, but it's more about like, where can I really fit in and build a life. And I've actually made great friends here in Lisbon. Like, I think that socially I've had a really good time, and Lisbon does have an interesting alchemy at the moment of, you know, attracting a lot of people from all over. But, you know, within the almost 3 years here, I think I've made like 2 good Portuguese friends, but they're not as close as other friends I've made of other nationalities here. Whereas, you know, when I'm in Spain, and maybe again it's because of the language, like, I really enjoy speaking Spanish, even though it's not fluent. I realized that over the weekend as well, but I think that's because I've lost a lot of my Spanish from like non-use over many years. But anyway, I still speak good Spanish. Like, for example, I was with these to friends of mine and I was speaking only Spanish the whole weekend, and I have no problem to say what I need to say. Anyway, maybe, you know, that makes a difference, that because I really enjoy speaking Spanish, I'm able to make more Spanish friends, whereas here I do speak Portuguese. I don't speak great, and with the Portuguese friends that I have, I always speak English because their English is much stronger anyway than my Portuguese, but the only people I guess I speak Portuguese with sometimes are Brazilians who are living here. But anyway, I don't know, I just feel culturally much closer to the Spanish, and it just seems to, I don't know, accelerate better for making friendships for me there than it does here with the Portuguese. So I think that it's just become clear to me, and while I find now the next steps like quite daunting of having to potentially start all over on a new residency process and potentially yet again moving to another country and starting over, you know, as I've been looking at rental prices in cities in Spain, it is much more affordable than at least Lisbon, because here in Portugal, for example, you only have two basic like larger cities that you could live in that have gay populations, you know, and that's an important thing for me. I need to find community, I need to find like-minded people. So in Portugal, that's either Lisbon or Porto. And in Spain, I feel one has so many more options to choose from in terms of cities, whether I would want to live in, you know, Valencia. I could potentially live in A Coruña, though I've actually never been to these places, so I need to go to discover them, but I've just been doing some ground level research. I asked ChatGPT what cities have, you know, like gay communities. I mean, maybe Bilbao in the north. I love Ibiza. I could consider living there, though Ibiza is not cheap either. I don't want to live in Barcelona. I think there's a lot of crime. It's not a city I resonate with that well. And potentially Madrid, though I don't love the idea to be in a big city without like immediate proximity to nature. So I don't know, I'm kind of just beginning this process and seeing, you know, what's possible. But for example, for what I'm paying here for this apartment in Lisbon, like if I were to look in Valencia, you know, for several €100 cheaper per month, I could get something even much nicer than what I'm living in here. So I think it more aligns to what kind of lifestyle I am wanting to move into, because I actually don't enjoy being like in the heart of a big city so much. I want more of like a relaxed, laid back way of life while still, you know, having community and possibility to make friendships, which is again what I was lacking in Bali. So I'm kind of looking for that equilibrium. Because I love to be in nature, I love to be in the countryside, you know, having a dog, like that's really important for me. I love to drive as well, and I want to have a car, and again, for living in the center of Lisbon in a place that doesn't have a garage, that's just not feasible. So, you know, I don't want to make this video about like the negative things about Portugal, because frankly there's not like that many. It's just about where you feel like you belong, and I cannot say that I feel that I belong in, you know, the Portuguese kind of mentality and culture and whatever, but it's not to say that it's not for other people. I think that if you are like beginning your expat journey and you want to live in a place that, for example, if you don't speak a foreign language, I think that Portugal is like quite easy, you know, to navigate, because the Portuguese are so accommodating and generally have an extremely high level of English proficiency. I mean, for me, I have a lot of options, like French is my second language, Spanish is my third language. You know, I could even live in Italy because I studied Italian before, and I can very easily like slide into that language. You know, I don't need to be in a place that's like, let's say, easy and that just has a bunch of expats. I really want to feel more integrated into life, and I think that that's important for me in terms of dating. If I'm gonna, like, again, I don't know, meet someone that's not an expat. I don't know, it's just, this is really confusing, and dating for me in Portugal just has not been that great, specifically with Portuguese guys. Like I said before, you know, to me they're like a mirage where they look really good from afar, but then you try to get up close and they just disappear. And it's happened time and time again. And I've realized I really do not believe that the problem is me, because I know that I have a lot to offer, in terms of love and partnership and whatever. It's just that these guys, I think that, especially the gay ones, I mean, I can't talk about straight men in Portugal, but I think that the gay guys just have I don't know, certain issues and aren't able to express themselves well in terms of talking about their feelings and sharing their emotions and really being vulnerable. I don't know. I mean, I do know Portuguese guys who are in relationships, just that I have not yet found one who was compatible with me. And whereas again, the Spanish guys, they just bring so much more passion and energy. It seems like it could happen more easily for me in Spain. But even regardless, even if it doesn't, even if I have to live my life as a single person for who knows how much longer, I feel that I could enjoy it more in a country like Spain, where people are just more joyful in the day-to-day life than they are here. And again, I think that, so it really comes down to two things for me. One is economical and two is socio-cultural. And I just think that with that combination, I would be willing to go through the stress and the hardship of having to start over yet again in a new country, but at least hopefully with the desire that it kind of be the last international move, at least that I do as a single person, for, I don't know, maybe forever. I don't need to keep moving along. I don't want to keep moving along. I really wanted to just find a place to plant roots, but I think that it's just not it for me here in Portugal. So I wanted to just share this update with you. And there are so many people who are considering moving to Portugal, and like I said, it could be the right fit for you. It's just that maybe it wasn't the right fit for me ultimately after nearly 3 years here. So as you can maybe tell, I'm almost hoarse now from talking so much. I'm also maybe getting a little bit sick. But anyway, thank you guys for continuing to support me and follow along on this journey of life. I hope that everybody's doing well. I hope everyone has had a great summer. And I'm glad that these heat waves have finally ended and now it's much more temperate and pleasant outside. So until the next time, everyone, take care and I'll see you later. Ciao.